Welcome to another episode from our show, Anything Goes. We always get to this question. I know of a servant or a friend, and this person is very spiritual, and he can help me answering many of my questions. When do I have to go to a priest, and what are his limits of advising me? I'm joined today with a group of my friends, Chris, Mary, and Irini, and this topic of advisor versus priest. Walk me through a cycle of you know or you love a person in the church, say he is much older than you. He is not a priest though. And what are the topics that you can discuss with her or with him, and then you feel uncomfortable going to Abuna with them? Anyone wants to pick up the line? Irini?
For my advisor, she just graduated from college, so I feel like I can talk to her about studying, because I'm about to start college, about like friendships and my social life, because she's not that much older than me, so she can probably relate to me much more than an Abuna can relate to me.
Okay, I'll come back to that question. I have a question for you, but Mary.
So my advisor, I guess, is maybe like 8 years older than me, 8 or 9 years. And I think what's great about her is that she'll tell me things that make me feel very bad. Like sometimes she'll tell me, like, what you did, this was wrong. You shouldn't have done that. And I'll feel very bad. And later on, like now, a couple of weeks later, you say, wow, I'm really glad she told me. So an advisor should be someone who's willing to tell you the things you don't want to hear.
Is it too difficult for you to say one thing like that? Give me an example of a thing that an advisor could tell you that's bad.
Maybe like, okay, so in this situation, we were a bunch of Coptic youth. We're on vacation in Egypt, kind of a spiritual trip, and people weren't fasting, although it was the time of the apostles' fast. So I was telling her, we were at a pizza place and we were all joking. Oh, when we were in Egypt, like no one was really fasting, and she later on told me that like that's really not a joke. If it was a spiritual trip, we really should have been fasting, even though it was kind of difficult to fast, traveling from place to place in Egypt.
Chris, where is the advisor has a role in your life?
Oh, I think my advisor plays a really dominant role in my life. I know I talk to this individual, I guess really nameless, almost every day. I really go to them as not just kind of a support, but it's someone that is really an immediate, within like arm's reach. Again, I can always pick up my phone, so I'm always able to reach this person.
Would you rank this person as a spiritual advisor, or as a college advisor, or a friend advisor, or a social, or is everything?
I definitely think they play a role in a lot of aspects in my life, so that I go to that person when I'm making big decisions. I go to that person when, just like Irini, when I'm making decisions, when I'm in a social atmosphere, or any type of venue where I kind of need guidance or kind of quick guidance. I know I can reach out to that person, even spiritually.
I see. Can an advisor be well-rounded in everything?
I think it's better to have advisors that are more specialized. You can have one that will cover kind of two areas of your life, but I don't think there can be one person a couple years older than you that knows everything about everything. Yeah.
Can your advisor be a boy 3 years older than you? A man, I mean?
No, not really, because girls and guys go through different things. So for me to tell him something and expect him to relate to me would be kind of weird, because he wouldn't be able to relate to me because we experience things differently.
Okay, that's one aspect. But would you agree also that there may be things you will not be able to confound to him, although you would confound to this person who finished college? And I believe you said she is she.
Of course, there's a lot of things that if a guy was my advisor, I would not be able to tell him. And especially 3 years older than me, because there's no experiences that, like, you want someone that's more experienced in life, more well-rounded, but 3 years, that's not he hasn't fully experienced life yet to tell me how to handle my life.
Chris, you don't have to agree.
Well, I definitely agree with the fact that I don't think someone, and I guess in Irini's case, a man, or in my case, an older girl or woman could be able to advise me. But I do think that that proximity of age can be helpful, so that something like a spiritual brother can definitely advise you in certain areas of your life, so that there's this nearness, this imminence that that person and their advice has for you.
So you agree with the gender, but you are not quite agreeing with Irini with
In that
the
age restriction,
difference.
yeah.
So you would take an advisor even if he's 1 or 2 or 3 years older, because you think the closeness will allow him to advise you better.
Yeah, for sure.
Is that okay?
Well, we're saying like, we're thinking of an advisor as like this really authoritative person, but an advisor is really just anyone who's giving you advice. So I think even someone your own age.
Is that right?
Yeah.
An advisor, anyone who can give you an advice? So he doesn't have to know you well then.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You can be like a good friend your age, and maybe for some reason that friend has been. I mean, one of my friends is just a couple of months older than me, but I really think she's very wise. And
So what's the difference between a good friend and an advisor then? A good friend can advise, but is he an advisor?
So I don't know. Like, do you think an advisor has to know their position as an advisor to you?
I'm asking.
I don't know.
There might be that like syllogism where like a good friend can be an advisor, but an advisor
Fine.
is not necessarily.
Okay, but a good friend, according to Irini, does not have the experience that could advise you from. Because I'm assuming a good friend usually is in the same line of age or around. But the way I heard at least the 3 of you initially, all of them were many years older, which is fine, but all of a sudden I'm hearing you to say, and it's good that you brought it because I don't want to confuse the audience either. Are we talking about a good friend who can advise, or an advisor in life who is he or she have well experienced, spiritual, well-rounded in matters of life that I need help in?
I think you're right. I think it's right to like classify them differently.
Okay.
So I guess we should maybe talk about the advisor.
Yeah, we want to talk about friends who can advise, because I'm sure if you both are good friends and you are a very sound person and a spiritual person, she can take your advice in some things. But I don't think you will have the experience that Irini needs as much as her college advisor or her advisor that she was describing. Is that fair to say? Okay. I wanna cross to another, a little bit sensitive point. Some of us go to Abuna with any question about anything. Like, should I buy a Honda or a Camry? Should I really visit Cancun in the summer or Punta Cana? Should I? And many more. I don't want to be ridiculous by what I'm saying, but you get my point. So what's my point?
I guess whether or not Abuna or our Father can guide us in every single aspect of life, not just being our spiritual advisor, but helping us choose, like you said, what decision should I make here, or should I do this and this, or go to this and this place. So
What is Abuna's role?
yeah,
So what is Abuna's domain, in other words? Is that a fair question?
Yeah.
What do you think, Irini? There are people who would literally waste time for Abuna's precious time in asking engineering questions, medical questions, travel questions, real estate questions. I'm not sure what else, but I mean, I'm using this time to really help them as well as we help ourselves. Who is our advisor? The advisor may have time more, and maybe he is rounded in one or more of these aspects. Does Abuna is capable or has the time to really advise in so many aspects?
I feel like Abuna's there to help us establish our life on Christ. Like everything that we do has to be based on Christ and involving Him. So if we're going to Abuna to talk about picking cars or which college to go to. That's not really establishing our life on Christ. That's just wanting an opinion, because Abuna will never be in our spot to tell us which college to go to, because he's not in our situation. So he's just giving us his opinion, which is not what he should be there for.
Okay.
So I think also we put Abuna in the place of another kind of more specialized advisor. So that's like one thing. Sometimes you don't want to go seek out that other advisor, and you think Abuna knows the answer to everything. And the other thing is, I think sometimes we replace like prayer, like asking God to show us answers, with just let me ask Abuna, rather than putting in the time ourselves.
And let me add here, sometimes also we have a sort of dependency, if you may, because if I fail in my choice, so it's his fault, because I asked him. So I'm already sort of leaving my own investigation of the matter, my own research, my own counselors, my own going to specialized advisor in purchasing a real estate or a car or whatever. I mean, in other words, sometimes we like the dependency to avoid us doing our own work in non-spiritual matters. So I want him to tell me which girl to marry before I tell him my personality, what I like, what I don't like. And all of a sudden, if my marriage fails, I'm blaming him, who unfortunately advised within the scope of his knowledge, but I allowed myself to blind myself on anything else, and as if asking Abuna gave me the blessing of God, then that's it. That's completely different than I'm asking him about, as you said, spiritual issues. Marital issues that will really affect my spiritual life and my eternal life. And other things, when Abuna himself is experienced in one of these things. Maybe Abuna was an engineer, or was a mechanic, or was a doctor, or was a real estate agent. So I can't argue. Maybe you can ask him these questions, but if he is not any of these, then his advice in that matter does not go to the rank because he's Abuna. It just is a simple person. He's maybe well-read about that. That's great. So ask him as a well-read advisor. But right away, because we love our priest so much, we really put a major burden upon their shoulders. And we make them make decisions that they themselves would like not to take a decision in them. We are pushing them in a corner of choosing for us many things in our lives, and allowing us not to pray and not to depend on the Holy Spirit within us, not to depend on ourselves to research, not to depend on a real study of the market you want to go in. So I'm hoping I'm touching something that's useful here. I'm not sure, is that something is useful, or I'm just wasted an episode of Anything Goes here?
No, I definitely think it's useful and necessary to distinguish Abuna's role in our life. But I also think that it's great that we can come to our Father of Confession or Abuna for anything, and that comfort is very necessary. And he definitely, I know in my case, always refers us to someone who's more specialized. So that's great.
That's very, very wise. Yeah. So if Abuna himself will say, Habibi, I think Fordham is an excellent choice for you, but I'm not sure. Why don't you ask this person? He graduated from finance and he knows all the business schools, and he will guide you better. So he gave his opinion as an opinion. And he also referred you to more guidance. Any additional thoughts?
I think it's also really beautiful, like in the church community, whenever you have some kind of question, you will always find someone in the church who can advise you.
This is very true, actually. Like almost within our congregation, you can find any branch you wish for. And at the end of the day, no one is greedy or not ready to really give you his heart and his mind and his wisdom in anything you choose. I hope you enjoyed this episode from Anything Goes. We try to really distinguish the role of an advisor from a role of a priest. So both of them can supplement our lives to become a better person, better spiritual and better in life person. If you have any questions regarding this episode or any other episode, please do not hesitate to write to me. I would love to hear your comments or questions. Until next time, have a blessed time. Thank you.